Hey world, my name's Mark. I've been a drafter for a while and have been working with cabinetry and millwork for a while. Wanted to take you on a spin through some of my processes and things that I've come up with. My new project template has got links to a bunch of other templates for different things I might need. I try and keep a lot of stuff in my DWT template folder. But there's little random bits here and there that live in other parts of the server, so I just drew up a little something here and made little hyperlinks to different files because a visual guide is maybe a little bit easier than searching through templates. Standard layers, CNC layers, text dimension, annotation styles, hatches, couple of title blocks. Annotations, titles, yada yada yada. A little place to keep track of field heights and some random bits to spruce things up here. I have made up a handful of dynamic blocks to help me out where it makes sense. Yes, I can draw rectangles and dimension them easily, but why keep doing it when you've already done it? So one of the blocks I made up is a dynamic block for frames and elevation. So I'm looking at a frame, great. I got a baseboard, a counter, great, fine. I've got dimensions to them, great. I can use grips for some of these. I can type in some of these. So, if I happen to know what I had for a width or a height, I can grab it, type it in there. I can change the dimension string to be on the left or the right or not there at all. And same for the width. I can have it above or below or not at all. Base, I can have it or not. I can determine the height of it by typing that in or dragging it up and down. And it's going to hold this overall height that I've got here because that's just your nomenclature. You talk about your overall height, you want to keep it so if I don't have a counter or I don't have a base, it's going to hold that overall height there and take it in and out from that. Little grips for overlays and overhangs and such there. So, yeah, this is a pretty good time to get me started. I can type in rail and style widths here for whatever I'm doing that day. I can move this through your elevation, however, if it's a floating cabinet or a tall cabinet or whatever. I've also got a couple of different frame styles here for left, right, or perimeter, or none if it was frameless. Just something to get me started because why keep drawing those rectangles over and over again? If I were to explode this, I've got some routines for offsetting doors inside of frames and making up margins and such. Shoot, yeah, I probably don't want 3-inch anything. Let me go to 1.5" rails and styles. It's my usual go-to there. If I explode that and ditch that, if I set my margin to 1.5" like I just did, I can choose to subdivide this face frame rectangle up into whatever. So maybe I'll say I want 4 across and 2 up and down. And yeah, my top drawer front opening can be 6 there. It defaulted to a door layer because I made that for doors and openings, but it works great for just making equal. You see me jumping out of my routines here and leaving these grid lines here. So I got a couple of dimensioning routines and different routines, and one of the things it'll do is light things up in blue and give me a chance to pick to one side or the other, and it'll just spit out some dimensions based on where those rectangles are. So yeah, you can see these are all equal width based on the width I had chosen and the margin or space between them I chose. If I set my margin back to 3/32 for my doors, If I say DF, it's going to give me, for each frame opening, it'll ask me what quantity of doors do I want, either vertically or horizontally. So let's say I want this to be a 3-drawer bank. All of them, well, actually, yeah, it defaulted to 6 inches for the top, and the rest are equal for whatever's left over. But if I said I wanted 3 of them and I want them to be equal, I can type in E, it'll make them all equal. You can be a set of tall doors, and you can just be one door and an opening there. So it offset me 3/32 and made it so that the doors or drawers or whatever I put in there are same margin, equal sized if I want, or whatever there. I've got a door swing routine for putting swings on things. I've got it set up so that if I hit space, it'll default to a swing, and I can also click to the left or right to change it to a door swing, or if I click in the middle, it'll be no swing at all if it was a fixed panel or whatnot. I'll set those back to drawer swing. So these are slab doors, or they look like that in elevation. It's just a rectangle. And I came up with a little routine where I just got a little door here. Let's change it to something exotic there, maybe. So if I wanted to have a 2.5 inch flat with this sort of profile here, I've got a door offset routine where I can pick doors in elevation and pick points along a polyline, whatever it happens to be, and it'll give me offsets based on those points that I picked there on the door layer there, and then a little joint line layer and a light line layer so that it prints decent looking, and it'll offset them all to whatever I said to, but it's all just rectangles and polylines. So if I wanted to change something, or just screw it, make that a slab, I can just erase what I just created there. Alright, I got a decent elevation that's doing something for me there. I probably could have just left that here. I'm going to move this all back to where I found it. Bing! You can hug the wall. I don't really need you for dimensions, and while I'm at it, this set of starter dimensions is nice, but if I erase these, I made up a little routine that'll just erase dimensions that I've windowed over. Ooh, yeah, I got 30 seconds and everything for doors, because my dimension routine will go over whatever you pick with it. So if I turn off my door dimension layers, let's try that again. Bing. Alright, yeah, just frame dimensions. And I've got it defaulting to giving me a dimension for what a face frame rail would probably be. And something with CAD dimensions, when you have text that doesn't fit within the extension lines, it'll just kind of push it out into space, so I'll usually have to remedy that a little bit. Push you guys a little closer. But yeah, I can also do some nonsense, or if the client doesn't care about that bottom rail and I can just add it later on some production drawings, let's just give some common sense dimension strings here. Yada yada yada. Layer previous. And you're hugging a wall, so I'm going to kill those overhangs. Sorry, this is kind of dragging here. Bing. But, yeah, all just rectangles. Perpendicular, oh snap, you always betray me. And I got a block up here too, so I don't know, let's match that width. And I'll match all the frame dimensions. Let's set the frame style to style left, and this can just be, I don't know, frameless on the right hand side here. So if I use the DF routine here, and I pick this, I'm going to burst it first. Alright, and I made this a goofy height, so I'm just going to clean up these dimensions here for my 40-inch base cabinets. Routine for making doors, because I've got that on a frame hidden layer, it's going to ask me if I want margins on one side or another, and I can toggle, which side should get margins or not, and it's going to fall into my usual asking for how many doors one way or the other, and give me some lines that represent some doors that are equally spaced, but I've got a margin at the stile and a margin at the crown here, but not down at the bottom, based on where this frame rectangle was. So yeah, those look kind of dumpy. I'm just going to make this whole thing a little taller there. Good enough. Put some swings on them. I'm just going to leave those as slabs. Another thing in my template, just a basic starter, a couple of rectangles for if I want to show a cut through in a dark line. I don't know, let's say I was buttoning my doors up to another cabinet that was coming at me. I would just put that dark outline there, or if it was a cabinet side, I'd have a little baseboard and side and a counter shown. Same thing, just rectangles I could draw myself, but why bother? And as long as I make sure things are lined up with my elevation, you've got yourself some pretty decent starting shapes there for client approval. Here's a fun one. I made up a dynamic block of a room plan that has visibility states for a lot of starter combinations of cabinet shapes in plan view, just some basic stuff. Single wall, left finished end, right side finished end, or no finished end, or both finished ends. And some grips in here for determining the room width, the cabinet width, and you can either stretch the upper or base depth, or you can type it in on the side here with everything else. I don't know, you have 24-inch base depth, 13-inch upper. So whether you're using grips or typing it in, you got that going for you. I've also got the ability to turn off the uppers or turn off the rough walls. If you're going to finish walls, it's just one less set of dimensions and a rough line to look at. A little quick spin through the rest of these here. So I got my L-shaped left with finished end left here. And I got to update the room depth, as it were, to get these looking decent. And with that, I've got, base depth left, upper depth left, wing left, as I'm calling it, for how far this sticks out there. Dimensions going with it, yada yada. You get some markers there depending on what faces there are worth looking at. Similar on the right side, I've got an L-shaped right with some finished end options, and I've got a U-shaped with some finished end options if that's a good place to start. The idea with this is you type things in until you get a good place to start, and you can explode it, and you're just left with polylines. You can edit as you see fit, same with the dimensions. So that's a good time. So for this elevation that I've got here, if I were to, let's say 13 and 24 and a half is a good time. I've already got that there. And I've also got this other block to the side here that's going to help me make some side sections. What did I say, 24 and a half? Yeah. Alright, so let's say for this elevation anyways, I've got things described accurately, and this is, the set of walls that I'm looking at. Maybe this trails off into the distance, so I might kill some dimensions I don't need or what have you. Alright, so I'm going to copy this up and say that this is my upper section, And I'm going to say this is my base section and get rid of this upper information here. I've got a routine that's going to help me draw sections. So if I pick this dynamic block and this face frame here to use, depending on how I've set this for, I've got a couple of different profiles, and this is a dynamic block, so I've got the ability to jump in here and change this profile of the panel thickness or what have you. The flats you can change, the shaker setback you can change. I got grips for the width here, and I've also got a field called use, where it'll change the panel thickness or detailing depending on if it's a door, drawer front, or like a glass situation there. And I've got all of these variations baked into the block for that. Looks a little something like this on the inside, where I've got visibility states for each kind of door. And then I'm doing something crazy here where anything I'm not using, I'm just moving out 10,000 inches to the side, which I know can bog down a drawing a little bit with things that you're not using still being there, but by the time it gets really slow, the project's pretty much done. It doesn't really bog things down too much, but part of my magic on this is you're going to see off to the side bits of blocks that I'm, with bits that I'm not using. So anything that's turned off or not used in a lot of my blocks here, if I've got too many things to change that it won't fit all into visibility states, I'll just push it off to the side out of my drawing area, because for 10,000 inches I can draw a whole handful of rooms here, and far enough out of the way. But yeah, back to the cabinet section routine. If I pick a door and make sure that my face frame thickness is going to work with that door, usually want to have an 1/8 inch thicker than the door for frameless, not frame, inset face frame construction. So cabinet section, I want to use those. I'm going to pick this these two plant sections, and for each of these it's going to draw me an X line and allow me to pick 2 points across where I want to cut a section. And then I'm going to pick where I want it to start on the left, and I'm going to pick the back wall, and it's going to look at what I cut through an elevation and go with the depth from face to the wall that I've got, and fill in the blanks with a cabinet box in the back that's going to work with that. And because I didn't bother to set the width right on the plan view, it's kind of hanging out. I'm just going to go through this one real quick. So if that's my base cabinet, that's my front corner, that's my wall. It's going to fill in the blanks there. And it's looking at the swing lines and elevation to determine what I should use for a door type that I was just showing you. And also whether it should be a drawer box or a door swing or a pull out or what have you. I'm just going to make those accurate there for the width and plan view for that dash line. So I'm assuming what I can in elevation and dumping those into blocks here. I don't have any logic for figuring out what's a finished end or not. So if you have a slab finished end, you can pull that back. But if it was something panelized or more detailed, you might just go to a mitered end there. And this is just painting by numbers, so to speak, with the door and frame blocks that I picked there. And all of these dimensions and everything about this is built into a dynamic block for a cabinet plan. Looks a little something like this in the block editor. I've given you the ability to stretch and modify things. And I've got a couple of different dimension scales in here. Yes, I could use annotative dimensions, but I don't really use paper space at all, and most of the things that we show are really just one of a couple of dimensions. So I've got what is it, 8 scale, 12 scale, and 16 scale for dimensions. So if I wanted to go from one to the other, I can just drop down that over here. Or if I wanted to change a bunch of them, I've got a routine that I made up just to pick blocks of the same names, so I could, across the board change these scales for the text and dimensions. Same thing for the doors and the frames. If I wanted to turn on a dimension, I could just pick them all and say, show a dimension. Little arrows to change the location of them. You wouldn't think you'd need that, but not every drafter is accurate, and I don't want to have to check everyone's work. So by putting them in the dynamic block, at least they're on the end of the door or frame. I know it sounds silly, but you just can't always guarantee that with some people. So yeah, little things. This is fun. If I want to change the overlay of my block here, it's going to hold my my grip base point on the frame opening and just dance around that frame opening, because as a cabinet maker, you want to refer to the frame opening, and I don't want to have to do math in my head for jumping around with overlays. So this is just a quick way to change that. I've got blocking in here. I've got cleats in here. I've got the ability to turn on and off doors and drawer fronts, and add pullouts, change the material, turn on and off dimensions inside and outside. And by writing that LISP routine to draw these plan sections for me, I'm using logic to turn on and off things I do or don't need. That's a fun one. This one should have had a hinge on the left there. For whatever reason, it didn't read the swing line. So, I caught that, and I can change it easily there. Because there's no rail here or style at the end, I've turned on a little finished end detail inside the routine there. So that's plant section stuff. Side sections, if I were to copy a couple of these section markers around, a little numbering routine just to number them starting from 1. It's all the same block definitions, so if I pick them all, I can change the sheet for all of them at the same time. Let's say I've got my title block at 8 scale. This is set to 8 scale. If I've got a baseboard here, just a polyline or a crown here, if those show up in the elevation as well, it's going to copy those over for me. And just real quick, I'm going to make sure that my walls and my section area match the walls in ceiling and elevation, so I've got the same heights happening there. And if I had taken the time to draw a crown and elevation, that would be nice, but let's pretend I just drew a profile here, but in any event, this is an object on the mill crown layer. So let's try this out. Cabinet section, I'm picking side sections. Because I picked side section markers, it's going to ask me to pick my side section starter block, which I've got here. And now it's going to take that base and upper depth and counter overhang and apply that to each section cut. So what I'm doing here is I'm trying to assume some things about what the cabinet would look like based on what lines I have in elevation here. And I'm dropping in those door and frame blocks in a way in the side section here, and once I've got that in place, I've got logic looking at, is it a door, is it a drawer, is it a frame, what is it next to, if it's next to this or that, do I need a drawer blade, do I need a full depth shelf, what's happening in there. And this takes a little bit, it takes maybe a good 15-20 seconds for each cabinet, but there we go. It's a newer drawing, so it looked a little faster there. So let's see what's broken here. Oh, alright, so I had a frameless top of a cabinet here, so I guess I haven't accounted for that with my logic, so I got my little dimension strings. I just got to update those, but doing pretty good on different combinations of framed and frameless stuff here. And so these are my doors that I had in plan view. It's taking the flat widths off of whatever I had in the elevation. So you're going to see this rail's a little skinnier than this one because I manually changed it in the elevation there. So, you know, I could have any wacky frame or door widths and elevation, and it's just going to, carefully, trustworthily make that happen in side view. And the frame options, aside from the thickness, all I've really got for you is it square or is it beaded? If that was beaded, my frame and side section would have beads on it. This is a whole other block here for the side view frame stuff where I've got dimensions for each combination. I've got you can have up to 5 rails, let's say, a top and bottom rail and 3 mid rails. When I'm writing my routines and dynamic blocks, I try and cover just what'll get you there 90% of the time. There's going to be edge cases where I've got more rails than this, but you know, it kind of compounds a little bit for all the stuff you got to jam in here, and I don't want to make it so that things get too top heavy, because certain things, if there's a lot of blocks in the drawing, it might get slower once you're doing, you know, a kitchen and a pantry and a wet bar and a drawing that's been going for 4 or 5 months or whatever. But yeah, dimensions baked into the frame side block because I can't get any other drafters to draw things the way that I like, even after showing them 10 times, or I can't even get them to just pick an endpoint correctly. So you wouldn't think you'd have to do it, but this makes my life easier because if I can make it easy enough that nobody has to do anything, they can't get it wrong, and I don't have to fix it later, because people that know what they're doing end up having to fix other people's work sometimes. And you're going to notice that the doors don't have dimensions on. I've been wrestling, well, I haven't even gotten to it yet. That's my next thing I got to write up is some logic for looking to see if there's doors in between frames and whether to turn dimensions on, because it's kind of redundant to have a door dimensioned if the frame dimension is almost the same size. You just kind of have people that don't want to read that many dimensions. So yeah, if I had some situations where I had doors or drawers worth describing, I'd pick those all and turn the dimensions on, and you know, it defaults to a certain distance off of the door that's kind of pleasing for the rest of these. You know, you might have to do some shuffling around. These don't have to stay dynamic blocks at this point. If your designer is possibly going to change things dramatically or change the door profile, it might help to keep these unexploded so that you can modify them, but that's the way I got it started there. It was easier for me to tell a LISP routine to tell a dynamic block what to be than it is to draw it from scratch, so I kind of piecemealed all of this together with a few dynamic blocks. These side section blocks have a bunch of options in there for different types of cabinet top and bottom configurations, wall gap, floor shim, toe kick height, door boring offsets, different amounts of shelves, thickness, setback front and back. And there's certain things that I've got grips on in here, but it can get kind of busy with a lot of things going on next to each other. So there's certain things that I just have drop downs in here for, you know, I don't know, different drawer box depths, or, you know, maybe I've got a pull out in here and I want to have that happening in here instead of adjustable shelves, so I can always change things in here, but I'm trying to assume as many things as I can about what's happening in the elevation to turn on or off what I need using LISP routines. Oh, that's funny. I used a wipeout in here so that you can't see what's behind the drawer, but yeah, it looks like that went in front of the drawer. Anyways. Yeah, this is my side section block. There's a little bit going on here. There's a lot of options and stretches and one thing affecting another. My goal was to make it so that the user had a everything they needed without being too cumbersome. I wanted to make this definitively the best way to draw cabinet boxes, because this helps me out down the line with production, because things are standardized. I can know for sure that things are spaced the way I expected them to. I don't have to worry about, some 32 millimeter system of shelf holes, off by a little bit or what have you. This always takes a minute to close out because there's so much crap in there, but day to day as you're using it, you won't have to deal with going inside of the block and jumping out or anything. Just wanted to get back to where this was with a door and a shelf there. Alright, so let's say these are my cabinets. I got 4 base cabinets. I've got 2 upper cabinets here. Here's my door labeling routine. It will just put a piece of text on each door on a door label layer with a prefix for what that is based on the swing on it. And I've got a numbering routine where I can window a group of text, and for every window it'll apply this current number and increment it for the next window. So yeah, that's good for a labeling routine for later on. And similar for the cabinets or different blocks, depending on what type of block I pick, it's going to look at it and say, alright, I got cabinet side sections, let's number them from 1. And it's going to do that. Oh, that's weird. It should be turning on the number here. It is shown. Why isn't it? Oh, jeez. Don't look. Don't look. Where even is that? This is all the crap that isn't turned on here. Ah, jeez. You're way over there for some reason. Alright, well, let's forget about that. I'm going to fix that before that has a chance to affect anyone's life. I'm going to do the same here. You can be 1, 2, 3, 4. And you can be 5, 6. Yeah, that's all correct there. Yeah, prefit maple's fine, whatever. I've got a routine where if I have a side section of a cabinet and a plan section of a cabinet, if they have the same number, it's going to take all the height information and things that you see in the side section and all the width information from the plan view in that plan section cabinet box, and it's going to check some things and make sure that things jive, make sure that the depths are consistent to both of them. If I'm showing a door in the side section, I need to be showing a hinge in the plan section so it knows which side it's hinged on. Just a couple of basic conflict checkers, and because I laid these out making sure that I've got the same door and frame profile thickness and the same overall depth for base and upper, everything is hunky-dory. And I call this routine CB for cabinet boxes, but I also like to jokingly call it coffee break, because this takes, well, a few seconds for each cabinet box as it collects information from each one, checks it against itself, and then if everything's good, it'll feed it into another dynamic block that I made up a while back that will give me CNC parts. So this block actually started life first, and what we'd end up doing is have an approved drawing where we've got an elevation and a plan view, just rectangles, let's say, and we would go over the elevation and manually draw in, oh, this is my cabinet height and width, and I've got this for doors and drawers and yada yada, and oh, this is where my door is, and this is what's edge banded or not. And what I did was I split this apart into just a side view and just a plan view, it's much easier to work with. Just for lag, these big ones, once you start changing a few things at a time, you have to wait for everything else to update. So by splitting these off into more bite-sized sections here, if I need to change something here, I can do that quickly, and what you get is a quick design drawing that you can then use to create CNC parts with. Again, covering the 90% of things. I've got up to 4 drawers, up to 6 adjustable shelves, 2 sets of door hinges here, and 2 different groups of adjustable drilling, so that, for whatever reason, oh, there they are. Bing, looking out for grips here. If you wanted shelves up here, I mean, I've in my LISP routine that I use to create the side sections, I've got a tolerance so that if the door isn't tall enough to take a shelf, I don't have it turned on, but you can always just kind of add it yourself there. Yeah, what I've been doing is I want it so that what you see is what you get, so that if a client is happy with 4 drawers in a cabinet, or only 2 doors, or, only up to 4 drawer blades or fixed shelves, I can handle that. And for the other 5-10% of the time where it's something atypical, I can just make a note to myself there, and when I get to my parts, I can scribble over this. Oh yeah, I got to cut out here, so that means that my side is going to be here or there, or my back is going to be whatever. And when I burst these, I can edit it. This is just polylines and circles, and happens to be on the CNC layers that we use where I work, and everything's labeled properly for when I lay this out on a CNC sheet. I got labels on each part here. Little notes if it gets doweled, if there's edge banding, and I've got engraving on here too. You'll notice I've got a drawing property value that I can change, so that if I wanted to change the engraving there, it'll do it across the whole drawing. But yeah, even inside of here, I've got options for dominoes on the side, or just pilot holes, or what have you. Finished left or right with a little tongue happening there, and some text calling out a finished end. And when I burst these, I end up moving these bits over onto their own plan for a box assembly for the shop there. So yeah, I'd be collecting all those, and then I would be going through and collecting all my cabinet parts. And I've got a routine to kind of group these together, but I don't have a full-blown optimizer for laying them out on CNC sheets. But if I just rotate all these so that they're facing, the grain's going left to right, I do have a routine that will separate them by color, so that I've got a little legend here, and I try to find color groups that don't overlap too much, and I'll do a little match properties to assign these to parts, so that when I lay them out, or use a command to kind of sort them by width and length, and make groups out of each part, it'll add a label to the bottom, but really all it's doing is sorting by color. So if I had something exotic or weird, as long as I don't use that same color on 2 different things, it's going to give me parts grouped together by color. Right now I've been manually laying these out onto CNC sheets, which it's a good puzzle time. It's a little Tetris, but I'm sure for some CAM users, I could probably give you just these parts in their own file by thickness, and you could have your CAM software optimize it. But yeah, that's a general overview of things that I've done to try and make my life easier, and could potentially be useful for other people. And while this isn't a commercially available product, my car needs some repairs, so if someone wants to throw me $1 million, we can talk. Yeah, that's a gist of it, I guess. What else can I say? I'll leave it at that for now. See if anyone cares about this. Again, pretty much everything you've seen is stuff that I've come up with on my own, and don't expect these routines to work on just vanilla CAD. It's all stuff that I've come up with over the years. And yeah, I've got a handful of other routines for production of face frames and doors to produce cut lists and whatnot. Yeah, all right, I'll leave it at that. Thanks for watching. We'll see who ends up watching this later.